Well, good morning, everybody. It's that time. As you can see, we're going to do some wiring. This is going to be the finish install for the 12-volt system for the camper. I'm splitting this in half. So I'm going to do the DC, 12-volt DC now, and then the next video will be the AC, the 125-volt side of the camper setup. So DC now, AC later. As always, warning, this is not a how-to video. All I'm doing is showing you what I'm doing. It gives you some ideas of what to do for yourself on your camper build. So, if you see me do something, you really want to take it with a grain of salt, because what I'm doing works for me. It may not work for you. And as you may or may not know, because I mentioned this last time we did electrical, the #1 cause of fires in RVs and camper vans and whatnot is electrical. If you botch this job, the chances of you burning your vehicle and everything in it to the ground are pretty good. So if you don't know what the heck you're doing with this, don't do it. Get somebody to help you out that knows what they're doing. Okay, that's the warning. What we're going to do to begin with is I'm going to pull the sitting bench out of the truck, because it's a lot easier to do all the install on all this stuff, well, except the battery. All the wiring and the auxiliary connections and things, all of that's going to get done in here with the bench sitting on the table, so I can get around to get everything and not have to try and squeeze my oversized body into the front corner of the truck and stick my head in that little bitty box to try and get everything done. So stand by. That's what we're going to do next. Okay, I've removed everything from the inside of here already. It's sitting on the garage floor. I deliberately built this so that it could be removed if I needed to use the truck for other purposes. So this whole box is held in with just 8 screws. There, get some light on the subject. Okay, before we get too involved here, it's time for the book again. The plan. Everything needs a plan, especially electrical stuff. This is our plan for doing the final electrical wiring. And this looks complicated, but it's really not. There's only a few major parts here, and then we just got to wire them together. Let me show you a close-up and we'll go over it. Okay, here's the plan. 2 colors. Everything that's orange is 12-volt DC. Everything over here that's yellow is 120-volt stuff. We'll get done later. Uh, Basically, if you look at it like this, this is what we're doing right now. This is the stuff that gets done now. All this over here will get done later. So, we'll cover that up so you're not too confused. And that simplifies things. We've got batteries. Coming out of the batteries, there's a Victron Smart Shunt, which is basically a monitor for the whole system that tells us what the battery's doing, how much you're getting charged, how much you're not getting charged, how much is going out, all kinds of things. And that's Bluetooth, so I can see that on my phone. And for safety purposes, and you should be doing this for every single thing that you would wire into a vehicle, the first thing you do coming out of the battery, your power source, is put a circuit breaker or a fuse in there to protect the rest of the system. That is a mandatory thing as far as I'm concerned. If you don't put a circuit breaker in there first thing coming out of the battery, you're just asking for trouble. And one of the things that you see a lot on amateur installations is they connect everything here to the battery terminals. There are 4 or 5 or 6 different wires connected to that battery post. It's not a good thing. The more connectors you put on a battery post, the weaker each connection gets. So you get more resistance buildup. It's not good. So the way you avoid that is you use these. These are bus bars. You put bus bars in, one for the positive, one for the negative, and run one line from the battery up to the bus bars and then connect everything to the bus bars. It makes it for a much neater installation, and it's a whole lot safer as far as your battery is concerned. So we'll come out of the battery, through the circuit breaker, into the bus bars, and then from the bus bars everything goes out to the other stuff. Like from the bus bars, go out, this is the fuse box, and next thing coming out of the bus bars, we have the DC-DC charger. This, we're going to actually come from the alternator. Again, a power source. First thing out of a power source is always the circuit breaker or the fuse. So that's the alternator through the fuse. And I'm putting a 100 amp key switched relay in here. Technically, I don't have to do that because this is voltage sensing, so unless the voltage up here at the alternator is 12.8 volts or more, it won't turn on. But yeah, I'm an old school guy. Always put a relay, an ignition switched relay in there to make sure that when the key's turned off and we're parked somewhere, we're not going to pull any power out of the starter battery to run everything. That way the starter battery will never go dead. Relay to the DC-DC charger. Solar input to the DC-DC charger. This is a dual input charger. It takes it from the alternator or the solar panels. And it's smart enough to know which is which. If power is available coming from the alternator, it switches off the solar. If you park somewhere and turn off the key, it'll switch from the alternator over to the solar. So, input coming out of the charger, again, this is treated like a power source to the batteries, so circuit breaker going to the bus bars. So this is our terminal point. Just think of it as an extension of the battery terminals. So the fuse panel comes out of there, the DC-DC charger goes into here, and the rest of this, the alternator, the solar, it all connects to the charger. It's a pretty simple system. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things to put in. This over here, this is already done actually, because this is from the original minimal installation that I did. But this part here, from the charger out to the alternator, we'll get to that in a little bit. But all the rest of this is going inside the battery box. All right, let's get started on it. Now, I've already come in here while this was in place in the truck with the tape measure and figured out where I want to put everything. So we're going to start with this DC to DC charger. Manufacturer's instructions say for best cooling to mount it vertically. So since this is a small box and it's not going to have the greatest ventilation, I'm going to make sure that we do that. And I want to mount this down as far as I can get it and still have a 2.5 inches or so space to the floor. And at the same time, I need to leave room up here on the top so that wiring from the batteries can come around this corner and come over to here where the fuse boxes be. So right in this spot right here, I think that's about right. Okay, I got a little carried away there and forgot to record a couple of things. So let's go over this. Let's see, the camera says, yeah, you can see it. So down here in this corner is that Victron super shunt that will tell me everything I need to know about how my system is operating. Okay, right next to it, this is the 40 amp DC to DC charger bolted in place. Over here on this side is the fuse box, and these are the bus bars I was mentioning, and they are going to go right here, and one there, kind of like that, shortly. And I'll get those installed along with this. This is the circuit breaker that goes between the DC to DC charger and the battery for the charging. It's going to go right here on top of the DC to DC charger. So the wire will come out of the DC to DC charger, go through here and over to the bus bars. Okay. Now, you don't want to really watch me sit here and drill holes and things and mount stuff. That's boring. Besides which, if I work on this, that camera's going to move. So I'll shut this off, put all these in place. Ooh, sorry about that. Put all this stuff in place and I'll get back to you. There you go, YouTube magic. Everything's in place. Again, smart shunt. This is the DC to DC charger. These are the bus bars. Over here in this corner, that's the fuse panel. You'll notice this circuit breaker here. This is the input line from the DC to DC charger back to the battery. And that will get wired in, and the wire will come up here, over into that, through here, and over to the battery. Output from the battery, the circuit breaker for the battery will be stuck on top of it with double-sided tape. Will come out the battery, down here to this corner, come up and over and to the bus bar. Okay. The negative from the battery will come in the bottom of the shunt, through the shunt, up here onto this side and over to this bus bar. and that'll get power to here, and from here we're going from the bus bars over to the fuse panel and a couple of other things that'll be over here in the future. So time to get started on the wiring. And here we are, through the magic of YouTube editing. We're done. Everything's wired up. Down here, this is the voltage sensor that goes on the positive side of the battery for the shunt, so it knows how to read the difference between positive and negative. This is the solar input. They give you one plug. I've split it to two to handle the solar connection on the side of the truck that I already installed, and one other to use in case I decide to put a roof mount solar panel up there. So got one that I'm going to use and one as a backup for later. Okay, all is done. It's time to move on. Let me see. I think I'll terminate the power leads coming from the alternator into the back of the truck. I'll terminate those, and then we'll go under the hood. Ah, that's the fun part. Alright, here's the mess of wire that we have from all the lights. This is the external power coming in, and this is the cable that I ran between here and the alternator to starter battery. This is our main power coming in to charge the batteries. I spared you that. I didn't think you wanted to listen to an hour of grumbling and cussing and whining and making complaints to Murphy and other people, but it took me an hour anyway to get this in place, because there's not a whole lot of room underneath a Toyota truck along the frame rail. Anyway, it's done. What I need to do is put this connector. This is an Anderson 50 amp connector supplied by the manufacturer of the DC-DC charger, and this is the called red one, is the one that they use for the incoming power. Now the DC-DC charger, when this is in place, will sit right about here on the forward wall. But I measured it while it's sitting there in the shop getting the work finished, and I know I need to make this about 9 inches long. That's one span of my hand, so that's about here, and that'll be about right, because the connectors for the DC-DC charger are going to be right in this vicinity. But it has quite a bit of slop in it, so if this is off a little bit, it's not going to matter a whole lot. So let's cut this and get started. And by the way, this is not hooked up on the other end, so we don't have to worry about that. This is marine grade 8 gauge silicone insulated wire. By marine grade, I mean that it's got an external sheath on it that's plastic, like Romex for a house. Only this wire is not solid core copper, it's stranded. So it's also on the inside here. If I can get this to come off. That's some tough plastic. Also, you can see this, it is silver looking. This is tin coated copper. So the silicone insulation, fine multi-stranded tinned copper so that it will not corrode due to salt air or humidity or anything like that. As I said, it's marine grade. It's for use on ships and yachts and boats. So if it works for them under their conditions, it'll certainly work for a camper. This stuff ain't cheap. It's like $2 a foot, but it's worth it. Let's see here. I want to make sure I get this the same length. Because these are having to go into this plug, we want both leads to be the same length, or as close as we can get them. Right. Now comes the fun part. This monster here is a terminal lug squisher. And let's see here. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. These are number 6 lugs because that's what they send it with from the factory. This is number 8 wire, so it's a little small. So, in the event of that, I brought along this, which is a different size terminal lugger. We will get that in here. And squeeze. There we go. That's in place. There it went. Okay, it's done. Okay, plug's ready to go. That's the last thing I had to do before I bring the sitting bench back here and put it back into place. So that'll come up very soon. Now we're going to move to the front and get under the hood and see if we can get that end of this cable done. It's all part of the fun. Alright, it's time for the last thing. Everything in the bed of the truck is done, assembled, wired, and I actually tested it last night before the big thunderstorm hit. We had some sunny skies for an hour or so, so I hooked up my solar panels, plugged them in here on the side plug on the camper, went inside and did some jury-rig connecting of the battery to the system. And according to the Victron Smart Shunt and the battery Bluetooth system, it was charging at 10 amps. So there you go. It's all working, at least on the solar side. This other connection here, this white wire, is this is the DC part of the DC charger. It comes off of the starter battery. So what we have left to do is hook up this relay, which will mount right here, and this fuse. Remember, got to have a fuse off of it, off of the power supply. Boom, first thing, it'll go right here. So that's next on the list. Get those mounted and get the wiring done from the battery through the fuse to the relay and out to the system. Then I can relax because I've been shortchanging you on the video. You can tell this isn't the usual 30-minute stuff, but I have to leave in less than 2 days for that 7-day trip that I mentioned. I have to have all this done, have all the gear loaded, do the maintenance checks on the truck, and be at the starting spot at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning. It's now Thursday afternoon. So let's get to it. You'll notice I keep having to stop and take care of this little problem, that little problem. This didn't work out quite the way I wanted to, have to move stuff somewhere else. Every job you do on a project like this, every little job you do along the way, it's going to have some issues. Nothing ever goes according to the plan. I keep saying that, and it's true. If you get lucky once in a while, and part of the little projects that go to make the big one work, once in a while the little ones will go okay, but the majority of the time there's always something that goes wrong. You drop a bolt, you cut a piece of wire and you solder it and you put it where you want it to go, and you realize that the terminal lug you put on it is the wrong one. Little things, and it just happens over and over and over. A little hint from a guy who does this a lot: when you get to the point where you're so frustrated you just want to start yelling and cussing and throwing things, it's time to walk away. Go take a break, get a snack, get a drink, play on YouTube, do something, and come back later. And then this, my friends, is why a job that you think is going to take a couple of hours is always going to take twice as long. Okay, let's finish this off. Okay, we're not quite done yet. We got the leads on the relay, the big ones. You got to have these two. These are the control relays. One goes to ground, and this one goes to the switched source that I use inside the cab of the truck to power my relays. I've got another relay on the panel that is in the kick plate on the passenger side. If you remember back in the second or third video where I went in and put in the temporary power source. But that is over there on the passenger side, and I had to run it through the firewall to here, and this goes on the positive side of the relay. If we look on the bottom, you got two blue lugs here. One's the ground and one's the power supply. They're kind of interchangeable. It's just a solenoid coil. So we'll do those and get this thing mounted back where it's supposed to be. And then I'll have to clean the battery terminals. Once that's done, then I can hook up the last wire and it'll be done. Alrighty, we've started the truck. Everything is done. Wiring's done. Everything's hooked up. Engine's running. I have my Victron Smart Shunt here. At the moment it's showing 0 amps and 0 watts charging. Let's close the circuit breaker and see if it smokes. It's on. And showing that it's up to 13 amps, 17 amps, 20, 22. Yeah, it's the charge controller internal to the battery is working. The DC-DC charger is working. And it says it's charging at 38 amps, 522 watts. Can't beat that. It's working exactly the way it should. Woohoo! All that work. Everything works fine. Now I can go on my trip. Not have to worry about it. Thank goodness. Okay. That's about it. I'll see you in a little while, like maybe tomorrow morning. Okay, that's it. That's the DC side of the DC charger is done. All the connections are good, everything's tight, nothing overheats, and it charges at full rated power just like it's supposed to. So, the next part will be the AC side, but that's going to take a few weeks because I am pretty much committed to doing, for the next 3 weeks in a row, I have camping trips and road trips and things to go on. So that'll keep me busy, and along the way somewhere in there I'm going to order parts. So it might be a month, 4 weeks, a month, somewhere in there before I get that AC video out. Best thing you can do is, just sign up for the channel. Click on the notifications, the little bell and all that stuff and everybody points at to tell you to do, and stand by, because it'll come. It will come. The idea is I want to get all this electrical stuff done before it gets too cold here. Well, I'm sitting here in the nice warm sunshine. It's 70 degrees. Everything's wonderful. But this is Idaho. Give it another 6 weeks or so and it's going to be freezing out here. Okay, so I'll see you then whenever the next video comes out. In the meantime, if I'm really lucky, I'll see one of you out there.